Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we pit two or more fictional characters against one another in a battle of strength, or wits, or never having to worry about ketchup stains, and see who would win. This week, Captain Marvel versus Shazam. What are you in for? Asked an unknown voice. The boy's eyes shot open. He was sitting in the corner of a room, shaped like a perfect cube, exactly 10 feet on a side. Off-white walls around him and fluorescent lighting overhead. A single reinforced door was the only way out of the room. No, not room. Cell. This was a holding cell. He tried to stand but couldn't move. He was tied up in something. Wait, someone had just asked him something. He turned to the opposite corner of the room and saw her sitting there. A woman in her 30s, a red and blue superhero costume with a starburst on the chest, and a defiant smirk on her face. Her name was Carol, but in her own world, she was better known as Captain Marvel. She had just woken up herself a moment earlier, and she took a moment to size up her new cellmate. A big, beefy adult man, or so she thought, in a red and white superhero costume with a lightning bolt on his chest. His name was Billy, but on his world, he was known as Shazam. You back with us, Sparky? Asked Captain Marvel. Geez, I guess I don't know. Where are we? Asked Shazam. Trying to figure that out, she said. What's the last thing you remember? Well, me and Taki Tani were at a baseball game. I was buying us some hot dogs from the concession stand. How about you? I was trying to convince my dumb cat to eat his food. He got spoiled on the fancy canned stuff, and now he doesn't want the regular dry stuff anymore. Wait, you were feeding your cat? My friend Taki Tani is a cat too, so the last thing that both of us remember is feeding cats. Do you think that could mean something? I really don't, said the woman. The two looked down at their bonds. They thought it might be red ribbons or fabric. Strange, it almost looked like... The door of the cell opened and a figure entered. He was a man in a suit and tie, but his hands and head were completely covered in the same material that was tying up the woman. Long, red, sticky bandages that completely hid all of his features.
I remember this original character.
Sorry that I left you both in this room for so long, the Crimson Mummy said, but when you're in my line of work, it takes a lot of time to sort through all the red tape. Editor's note, see Smash Fiction 49, Batgirl vs. Spider-Gwen for the first appearance of Red Tape. OC, do not steal.
Episode 49. Let's go and fucking back.
It's almost 100 episodes ago, you guys.
I try my best to work him in when I can, but bureaucracy and intellectual property-related battles only come up so...
There's really no need for any more Red Tape puns.
All right,
we got it. It's fine.
Wait, I heard of you, said Billy. Batgirl told me that you tried to make her change her name because it was infringing on Batman or something? Oh yeah, said Carol. I heard a similar story from Spider-Gwen. Surely you don't mean Athena and Gwen's Tasty. I specifically forbid them from returning to their previous identities. I might need to pay them a visit later. But back to the business at hand.
Wow, Liz, why?
She was a food-themed superhero who was solving world hunger. It was a whole thing. But back to the business at hand. I am a process server operating on behalf of the Interdimensional Consolidated Bureaucratic Bureau of Bureaucratic Consolidation, and the two of you stand accused of the most heinous crime imaginable: copyright infringement. In 2011, it was discovered that you were both operating concurrent unlicensed superhero small businesses under the same codename of Captain Marvel. And so the two of you were both sent a cease and desist letter informing you that you needed to change your names until you had your day in court, at which point in time it would be determined which of you, if any, owned the copyright on that name. Oh, I remember that, said Billy. And don't you worry about me, I stopped right away. That's why I've been going by Shazam ever since. Carol laughed. What? Said Billy. Oh, you were serious. I didn't even finish reading that stupid thing. I lit it on fire. Weren't you afraid you'd get in trouble? I've been in trouble before, she said, smiling. So you've still been going by Captain Marvel all this time? Mr. Red Tape, if you found out about this all the way back in 2011, why are you just bringing us to court now in 2019? Red Tape grimaced. Ever since the early 2000s, the meteoric rise of fan art, fan fiction, and comedy debate crossover podcasts means that the ICBBOBC has had an enormous backlog of cases to work through because despite what you may have heard on the internet, simply saying fair use does not in fact make it okay. And though the Bureau is many things, expedient is not one of them. So what is this place? Asked Carol. Where have you brought us? I'm so glad you asked, said Red Tape, stepping outside the room. The binding that had been constraining Carol and Billy suddenly vanished. They climbed to their feet and stepped outside the holding cell. They find that they were now standing on the street of a large metropolitan city, but something was off about it. The streetlights were on, as were many of the lights in nearby buildings, and the streets were all lined with parked cars, but everything was completely silent. There were no people in the city at all. This was once a world known as, Earth 1, Earth Alpha, Earth Prime, something like that.
One of those.
Its name was determined to be too similar to several other Earths, so it was impounded by the Bureau, and all of its inhabitants were evicted to other realities. So right now, it's just a big empty planet. All you need to know about is that it's going to serve today as your courtroom. In order to determine which of you is the rightful holder of the Captain Marvel copyright, the two of you are going to have a trial by combat. Billy and Carol shot Red Tape a pair of incredulous looks. I know, but you see, the ICBBOBC recently had a new board member appointed to the position of chairman, a fellow by the name of Michael Duffy, who recently decreed that all interdimensional intellectual property disagreements be settled by trial by combat. Apparently, he's really into watching two people from different universes fight against each other in highly contrived scenarios.
God damn it, Duffy.
Dude, said Carol, that's all well and good, but we're not going to fight each other over a stupid name. Right, said Billy. Who cares? All right, said Red Tape. If one of you wishes to concede, you certainly can. Cool, said Captain Marvel. Sparky concedes. Let's go home. Wait, why do I have to concede? Asked Shazam. Kid, I got squatters' rights. You've been neglecting the Captain Marvel name for 8 years now. Yeah, but that's because I was following the rules. I don't think you should get rewarded for ignoring them. You gotta have that name for 8 years. Shouldn't it be my turn now? I think you're getting off light with that. Was that a threat? Said Carol. I think so, said Billy, confused. Bigger men than you have tried to push me around before, said Carol, poking a finger into his chest. It never works out for them, Shazam. Just because you're strong, said Billy, poking back, doesn't mean you can break the rules. And Shazam is a very cool name. So much so that once I take back the name Captain Marvel, I might not even use it. I just want it now because you don't deserve it, and I do. Oh, said Carol, cracking her knuckles. I'll show you what you deserve. The fight started friendly enough, but once Captain Marvel and Shazam each realized just how invulnerable the other one was, they stopped throwing punches at each other and started throwing semi-trailers. First one to back down loses, or if no one backs down, first one to get knocked unconscious, or worse. Will one of these Captains Marvel eventually bend, or will neither stop until they break? Instead of doing any research this week, I was busy designing additional supervillain bureaucrat OCs, such as Buckpasser, String Puller, and Moot Point. So I, Claire Mulkerin, will be your judge this week. Buy all our playsets and toys.
Yeah!
Representing Billy Batson, aka Shazam, are Dan Mulkerin.
That's right. I'm what Zachary Levi turns into when he says Shazam, which is why he basically never says it.
And Megan Bob.
This is just a public declaration. Comics, if you do one more continuity revision, addition, alternative universe, I, Megan Bob, will personally fight you with my own two hands.
Bob, I will hold its arms for you. You can.
Thank you.
I will help you with that.
Miles.
We're on the same page.
Representing Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, are Miles Schneiderman.
I'm sure you think you have a plan. Maybe you even think it's a good one. You probably think you brought enough bullshit too. But if you think that this is enough to get through me, you're wrong.
And special guest, Sarah Langen.
You can either admit that Carol Danvers is the one true Captain Marvel, or we can agree to disagree.
Oh.
Yeah!
How dare you? I would never make a terrible Kree pun. Wait about 5 minutes for that joke to pay off. And a quick note, we are using the character currently known as Shazam, back when he was known as Captain Marvel, between Crisis on Infinite Earths and Infinite Crisis, before he took the Wizard's place on the Rock of Eternity. And we are using Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, as she appears currently, and everything from her whole timeline is fine, because her continuity is significantly less fucked.
That is correct.
In order to see who's going first this week, I have a challenge for the advocates participating in this match. First one to give me a high five gets to go first.
Well.
I'm sorry to see you in the face.
I don't want to take another shot at that.
Sarah, you had one job.
That was the biggest gimme we've ever had on this show.
I'm sorry, there's an earbud cord.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting it.
It's all right. She also knocked my headphones out of my ears, so it's fine.
Oh my god.
One more try. We'll do it real close. Just tiny one. There we are.
Nice.
Oh,
All right,
would
good
you
job.
look at that? Sarah, who is sitting next to me and recording off the same mic, just gave me a high five, whereas both members of Team Shazam aren't even in the same state as me. I guess that means Captain Marvel's going first. Team Shazam, better luck next time. Gotta work on those reflexes.
Slash arm length.
Slash arm length. Team Captain Marvel, it's time for the two of you to start talking, and I guess that means I'll shut up, because as they say, two's company, Kree's a crowd.
Aw.
Air Force Colonel, former intelligence agent, the youngest security captain in NASA's history. Carol Danvers has had many names and titles, including Ms. Marvel, Binary, Warbird, and Captain Marvel, Earth's mightiest hero, which is just the better way of saying world's mightiest mortal. Looking at you, Shazam. She's led Alpha Flight, the New Avengers, and the Mighty Avengers, as well as been part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Starjammers, Avengers, X-Men, A-Force, and the Ultimates. At first glance, her power set seems pretty standard. After being caught in the explosion of the Psych Magnetron, an experimental device designed to give the human brain control over magnetic fields, her latent Kree powers inherited from her mother were awakened, and she gained access to increased strength, speed, and durability to start off with. Hank Pym has clocked her base strength at 92 tons of force, with the potential to go much higher. Her personal record for flying from Broadway in New York City to the edge of the atmosphere is 1 minute and 58 seconds, and she hits the atmosphere at a modest Mach 3. She also has a 7th sense that allows her to sense danger and predict her opponent's moves. Most importantly are her energy absorption and manipulation powers, as well as her photon blasts. Carol can absorb any form of photon energy from kinetic to nuclear to electric to antimatter. In Captain Marvel number 8, she even absorbs Monica Rambeau as she takes the form of electricity, part of a plan to amplify both their powers and successfully defeat a giant robot. Her photon blasts are powerful enough to weaken Thanos, knock out Count Nefaria, destroy spaceships in one blow, and completely obliterate Tony Stark's Hulkbuster armor. Her energy-absorbing powers are also the source of her healing factor, as she can use the energy she absorbs to recharge herself. Additionally, when she absorbs enough energy, she unlocks her binary powers, effectively going Super Saiyan. Binary enhances her already insane power levels, as well as granting her the powers of generating radiation and control over the force of gravity. Most importantly, Carol has the drive and force of will necessary to win this fight. Sure, she's impulsive, hot-headed, and more of a punch now, ask questions later kind of gal, but her tendency towards brute force and quick thinking will win her this fight. In Captain Marvel number 9, 2 T-Rexes show up in New York City, and does she ask where they came from? No. She takes off her Stark-designed sash made of impermeable fabric, muzzles one T-Rex, and then uses her new grip on its face to hurl it into the other T-Rex. Subdued, they're Reed Richards' problem now. Even when she knows she should, she's compelled to never run from a fight. In the Enemy Within storyline, she has a brain lesion that grows bigger and more painful every time she flies. Does she fly anyway? Of course she does. She's Carol motherfucking Danvers. She ignores the nausea, dizziness, brain on fire, knock her to the ground, migraine, in order to fly into the atmosphere and save her loved ones and half of the eastern seaboard. She treads the fine line between willing to sacrifice herself and straight up suicidal. Hell, this is a woman whose way of relaxing involves flying up into the atmosphere until she passes out and relying on her energy-absorbing powers to heal her on her free fall back to Earth. This is also a woman who can look into the Black Vortex, an ancient mirror that enhances powers and abilities. She can feel the overwhelming power of her cosmic self from the Black Vortex, describes it as like going binary, but more so, with no more doubts, no more fears, and all that survives is force and ego. And she says no. In her own words, I know that gravity cannot ground me, that physics cannot bind me, that there is no attack I cannot deflect, no energy I cannot hold, that I am undefeatable, the last dream of a lost planet, my own force of nature, that I am power itself.
Sarah mentioned Carol's seventh sense, also known as cosmic awareness, which puts its user in harmony with the universe. It's pretty broad and somewhat vague as a concept, but there are 3 things we know it can do. First, it is one of the key drivers behind Carol's binary powers. Unlike Mar-Vell, the original Captain Marvel, she can tap the cosmos physically as well as spiritually, manifesting the raw power of vast cosmic forces by essentially becoming those forces. Second, it allows for an unknown degree of reality manipulation by shrinking the distance between Carol's mind and the universe. This doesn't really happen that often, and when it does, the effects are tiny and brief, but it can at times be enough to swing a stalemate. Third, cosmic awareness can result in a limited form of precognition, allowing its users a peek into someone's mind, insight into their immediate tactics, or a glimpse of larger events in the future. And not to brag or anything, but I must have a little bit of cosmic awareness going on too, because I can tell you exactly the kind of nonsense Team Shazam is bringing to the table, and it is, as the big red cheese himself might say, a pile of hooey. Your Honor, I regret to be the one to tell you this, but tonight you're going to hear about magic and gods, and probably Superman, if I know my Danvers Mulkerin.
It's possible.
You don't need me to tell you that shit is all just poorly defined mythology, especially Superman, or that magic is just a word for things people don't understand yet. Shazam has the wisdom of Solomon? That's awesome, dude. Solomon is an apocryphal ancient dude bro best known for making one good decision, which was also made by at least 22 other apocryphal ancient dude bros in other mythologies. Big deal. Oh, the courage of Achilles. Cool. That guy was so brave that he's only remembered for dying. Went toe-to-toe with Superman. Okay, but then how to account for the fact that he was once sent staggering by a simple knee to the chest from a guy named the Arson Fiend. These mythological comparisons mean nothing. What are Billy Batson's powers? How do they work? What do we know? Well, for one thing, we know that Billy's powers come from somebody else, namely the wizard Shazam. We also know that the power can be shared, most notably between the trio of Billy, his sister Mary, and their friend Freddie Freeman, which is just the most delightful thing to say ever. And because the power can be shared, we know that it is finite. When only one of the 3 is in Marvel form, they have all their power, but when a second shouts Shazam and transforms, the power is halved between them. When all 3 are marveled up, the power resides in thirds, resulting in demonstrably weaker heroes. This process is instant and not limited by distance, and it's not even limited to the power of the various Captains Marvel. The wizard Shazam has a lot of magical irons and a lot of magical fires, and it's all the same power. No matter how strong Billy is, if Mary or Freddie turn into their Marvel forms anywhere for any reason, or if Shazam needs to conjure up something significant, Billy's power level drops immediately. That's just a hazard of getting your abilities from an outside force. Another hazard is not being as familiar with your abilities as you might be if, say, they were intrinsic to your being. We say that Billy, quote-unquote, has the 6 powers granted to him by a 2-year-old's command of the alphabet, but really, they're tools, powers he has to consciously use. That's why he spends so much of his solo series, The Power of Shazam, doing stupid shit until somebody reminds him, hey, use the wisdom of Solomon. His powers can be forgotten, they can be ignored. I've certainly never seen him use them all at once. If our opposition says at any time that Shazam is something or can do something, just remember that it's all conditional. None of these things are who Shazam is. Who he is a teenage newsboy named Billy Batson, and everything else is dressing. Maybe Billy is sometimes stronger than Carol Danvers. Maybe he is sometimes faster, but he has to think about it. He has to process it. He has to use his tools, not with the wisdom of Solomon or the courage of Achilles, but with the tactical understanding and grace under fire of a 12-year-old kid with a long history of personal issues and probably PTSD. Tools that can be snatched away in an instant, as has happened on several occasions just because the wizard didn't like his attitude. Power that, as we see during his duel with the Spectre in Day of Vengeance, can and does run dry. Now, having heard all that, consider Carol Danvers, daughter of a Kree warrior, inheritor of inherent biological adaptations, almost all of them designed for combat by the evolutionary process of another world. That process was dramatically accelerated by the alien race known as the Brood, whose experiments catapulted Carol's genetics light years ahead of the Kree evolutionary schedule. Carol is a walking nuclear reactor, instinctively capable of performing stellar nucleosynthesis, the process by which the sun emits 430 quintillion joules of energy every hour.
Give me those numbers. I like them.
That number written out
That's what I'm here for.
That number written out is 430 000 000 000 000. The proton-proton chain reaction of hydrogen fusion releases approximately 26 million electron volts per fusion cycle. Extreme heat generation, control over gravity, manipulation of the electromagnetic spectrum, absorption and repulsion of nearly any type of energy, these are the natural processes of Carol Danvers' body. And you're telling me she's gonna get beat by a guy who turns back into a prepubescent when struck by his own lightning? Billy is an old-fashioned kind of kid, stuck in the past. To be fair, he can't really help it. The wizard Shazam cast a spell on Fawcett City to keep it from aging through regular time, literally holding back the progress of the entire community. And yet, everything in Billy's mannerisms screams that he struggles with moving forward. But for Carol Danvers, moving forward is everything. Higher, further, faster. Evolution and adaptation no matter what. During the Brood experiments, the alien scientists note that, quote, her physical form we can alter at will. What has proven most fascinating is her psychic resistance. Though she is experiencing supposedly unendurable pain, she remains aware of all that transpires. She remains sane and defiant to an extent I would not have believed possible. Doing things others don't believe possible is kinda Carol's thing, which is how you end up on a team like the Ultimates, whose entire job is to solve unsolvable cosmic problems, and whose qualifications for membership are, according to the Blue Marvel, having defeated a Cthulhu. And sure, maybe beating Billy Batson is technically impossible. Maybe all the gods and magic stuff is legit. Maybe he really is that tough, that difficult to conquer. And if that's the case, guess what? Carol Danvers will adapt and evolve as she has done throughout her history. If Shazam really is the toughest battle Carol has ever faced, rest assured, she will rise to the level of her competition. It's in her DNA. As she herself puts it in the first issue of her new series, while fighting some sort of kraken no less, you know the most important thing I've learned? Always get up. If you always get up, then it's never over. And then she flies into the kraken's mouth, blows it apart from the inside, and moves on to the next 2/3 of the issue. That's who Carol Danvers is. That's who she will always be. And nobody can ever take it away. Unless you're Rogue, which you are not.
The last minute self-own is amazing.
Okay, very good, Team Captain Marvel. Team Shazam, it's time for your opening arguments. And as you're delivering them, something I'm curious about, would you mind telling me which letter of your name gives you the ability to instantly identify any song after just a few seconds of hearing it? Because that's clearly your greatest power of all.
Yes, I love it.
Shout out to a mid-level popularity song identification app. Very good. Over the course of this podcast, we've talked about a lot of incredibly powerful forces in the multiverse of fiction. Magic, superpowers, super technology, divinity. But there's one source of strength that's so overwhelmingly effective that I'm shocked it hasn't been touched on before. Acronyms. Okay, so acronyms might not typically be associated with irresistible might in the way that, say, irradiated animal bites are, but you only need one really effective example to have your whole worldview blown apart as though by a lightning strike from above. The acronym Shazam. Yes, it's not just a snappy name for a very snappily dressed superhero, it's also a handy way of remembering what precisely this superhero can do. So let's take a look at each of these letters and see why Carol Danvers just isn't quite as marvelous as Billy Batson. S is for Solomon, wisdom of. This is something between clairvoyance and omniscience. Shazam basically has a direct line to a universal encyclopedia and can know just about anything if need be, such as how Captain Marvel's powers work, what her limits are, and what her weaknesses are. We frequently talk on the show about weaknesses that characters have, but often the objection is, yeah, but how would that character's opponent know about that weakness? Well, this is how. Solomon's wisdom also grants Shazam supernaturally heightened decision-making skills, insight, and tactics, beyond even the skills and experience of a military officer like Carol Danvers. H is for Hercules, strength of. Shazam can arm wrestle Superman to a standstill. You know, Superman, who can punch apart planets or bench press the weight of the Earth for 5 days straight. In JLA number 29, Shazam knocks out Superman in 2 punches. Go back and listen to Superman vs. Goku for some perspective on this. Superman takes, quote, a force equal to 1,000,000 nuclear blasts in Superman Doomsday Hunter Prey, and an explosion equal to 50 supernovas in Action Comics number 846. But apparently, neither 1,000,000 nuclear blasts nor 50 supernovas deliver quite as much punishment as 2 punches from Shazam. A is for Atlas, stamina of. Shazam has a bottomless well of endurance. He never gets tired, and he doesn't have to breathe, sleep, or eat. Z is for Zeus, power of. Shazam can not only hurl lightning, he can also manipulate magic and heal from just about anything. He's so freaking powerful that the so-called Shazam family, one of the mightiest groups of heroes in the DC universe, is made up of people whose incredible powers come out of the overflowing leftover power that Shazam doesn't even need to touch. A, the second time, is for Achilles, courage of. Whether he's up against the endless alien armies of Darkseid or the sanity-breaking Lovecraftian entities lurking around a surprising number of corners in the DC universe, Shazam will never give up. Incidentally, this also makes him basically invincible. He's, no joke, maybe the single toughest hero that DC has in their stable. The entirety of Starman Volume 2 number 40 is more or less Starman constantly blasting Shazam with his cosmic staff on full power, and Shazam just sitting there patiently, waiting for Starman to listen to reason. There's a part in JLA number 112 where he gets turned inside out and is basically just momentarily dazed. It's stated that not even Superman or Wonder Woman could have survived such an experience. And finally, M is for Mercury, speed of. Shazam can fly faster than the speed of light. He can easily keep up with, if not outpace, the Flash. This also means that Shazam's perception and reflexes are enhanced, so he won't constantly run into objects while traveling at such speeds. So Captain Marvel might as well be moving in slow motion. Keep in mind that one of Shazam's go-to attacks is to call down lightning to strike himself, but then dodge out of the way so that the lightning hits the enemy instead. So not only can he hit Captain Marvel with magic lightning bolt after magic lightning bolt, it also means that Carol is going to have a real tough time hitting him back, given that, he's fast enough to regularly dodge magic lightning bolts. Both of these characters are great, and I've read countless comics about each, but Shazam is explicitly a power fantasy character. He's a kid's idea about what being a grown-up superhero is like. That's what makes him fun, that's what makes him hilarious, and that's what makes him unbeatable.
Let me say up front that unfortunately for Captain Marvel, she is an actual normal superhero, and Shazam is an insane Golden Corral buffet of powers brought together into a single plate that no one was ever meant to gaze upon. Why is there ice cream on top of the steak? Who put macaroni and cheese in with the chow mein? Who can say? Marvel's biggie is power absorption and manipulation, but she straight up admits that she cannot absorb magic in giant-sized Miss Marvel. Shazam is nothing but magic. If the fact that his name is the sort of thing a stage magician would yell before asking, "Is this your car?" isn't a giveaway, then the fact that his powers come from a guy called the Wizard Mammergan would definitely clue you in. These magic-y powers mean 2 things for Captain Marvel. Thing the first, she can't use Shazam as a power source or turn his powers against him. Thing the second, if she gets hit by any of his energy attacks, she's going to take the damage instead of absorbing it. There's a reason why she and Doctor Strange team up in Secret Wars. She needs help fending off those Abras and Kadabras. For an illustration of how rough her ability to handle magic is, she resorts to throwing a cat at the Traveler. Aside from how desperate a move that is, cats don't like being thrown, so boo to that, Captain Marvel. Known cat thrower Captain Marvel is a precog, so perfect situational awareness, surely. But if that were true, nothing bad would ever happen to her. I am here for that My Little Pony Avengers or Magic storyline, but clearly that's not how comics work. If her precognition was perfect, Rogue wouldn't have been able to touch her and take all of her powers and dump her in San Francisco Bay like she does in Marvel Superheroes Volume 2. The longer the fight goes on, the more it favors Shazam. Captain Marvel, for all of her strength, can burn through her power supply, and when she does, it's months of recovery and looking longingly out windows, coughing gently. Worse, she's not at her best emotionally when her powers aren't at their peak. In the Live, Cree, or Die storyline, such a pleasing name. Her powers are in
Bob.
low
How dare you bring Cree puns into this podcast?
You're right, I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
Her powers are in low flux, and while fighting a handful of Kree soldiers, she calls for backup from Captain America, thinking to herself, I'm spent, I've got to lie low and wait for the cavalry. She gets captured, Cap shows up and asks her about reinforcements. She admits to him that she didn't call for anyone but him. He's furious and calls her out, saying that it's because she's trying to show off to him that her powers are fine. She accuses him of having it in for her, and his response is that she suck it up and be a team player. Naturally, she gets benched for all of this CW-worthy drama. Then, Spike quits the Avengers. The bottom line is that she has a weird relationship with her powers. She's a perfectionist, and when she can't succeed the way she feels she should be able to, she operates dangerously. Fighting someone as overpowered as Shazam would be enough to upset anyone, but Captain Marvel is likely to stop thinking tactically as soon as the going gets rough. In issue 37 of Miss Marvel, she fights Ghazi, and her frustration with the situation starts to unravel and causes her to burn through her powers. She says, he hits me harder than he should be able to. It hurts more than I expected. She pushes herself harder and harder to defeat this person that she thinks she should be able to defeat, and then finally goes Super Saiyan, for lack of a better word. Her powers overcharge, and she loses control of her faculties, and the only thing she can do is get away before she explodes into sparkles, saying, I feel it, everything burning, giving out. She should have given up then, and she should definitely give up now.
Wonderful job, Team Shazam, with those opening arguments. Now it is time for rebuttals. And Team Captain Marvel, you know what that means. Time for higher thinking, further yelling, and faster bullshitting.
I want to address a few things that you were saying, Bob, simply because a lot of the specific points you brought up are kind of older in Captain Marvel's history. Like, for example, the Live, Kree, or Die storyline. The extent to which her powers have grown and developed and again evolved since then, and most particularly since taking on the mantle of Captain Marvel, really can't be exaggerated. In recent years, she's had no problems with power source. She's had no problems with being able to handle the amount of energy she's channeling. Like Sarah was saying about going binary, like she actively enlists her cosmic level allies to shoot her with their antimatter and the rest of their stuff so that she can go binary and have access to a bunch of different powers. So as I see it, more of a correction than a rebuttal, but it's been a while since she suffered from the weaknesses you were talking about.
See, I don't know that that's true, Miles, because first of all, what you're saying about her powering up is contingent upon her being able to absorb energy, which she can't do with Shazam because he uses magic. The other thing is that, like, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, she ran out of energy in a fight in Secret Avengers number 26 during Avengers vs. X-Men, which was after she assumed the mantle of Captain Marvel. Like, she flew out into space and got in a fight and ran out of juice.
When she's defending the planet Torfa from the entire Spartax fleet, and it's just her and a bunch of spaceships, she's clearly not worried about running out of power. Like, every blast to a spaceship is just as easy as the last one.
Yeah, plus she has plenty of power accessible here in the city. Like, there's plenty of sources that she can draw from, including Shazam's magic, by the way, because she actually can absorb it. It's just harder and hurts more, and what even is magic anyway? It's just energy.
It's weird because Captain Marvel herself is the one that says she can't absorb magic, and they're her powers, so I assume she would know.
But Bob, she says that in the same storyline where she eventually absorbs magic.
Which storyline are you referring to?
The time where she throws the cat at the Traveler, and then Doctor Strange has to help her absorb the magical energy. That was back in 2005 when she was Miss Marvel. She took over as Captain Marvel in 2012, which is when, like, her powers have really started to grow and change. She's pretty much always a cosmic superhero. She doesn't go up against magical opponents as often. So there aren't any recent examples that I could find of her trying to absorb the magical energy and failing. So just like purely speculatively, based on her power level back in 2005 with Doctor Strange and her current power level, I think that she would be more well-equipped to absorb magical energy on her own now. because she's so much more powerful than she was back then.
I'm not sure that I agree with you. Her evolution as a character, particularly in the last, 10 or 15 years or so, as far as I see it, is more about her growing in confidence than it is about her growing in like actual literal power. Like she got a huge power boost back in, I think it was like the 70s when the Brood experimented on her. But after that point, like she hasn't really significantly meaningfully increased in power. But even if we are to say that like with an extreme degree of difficulty and like fighting through the pain, weakening herself in the process, she can absorb Shazam's attacks, the wisdom of Solomon will tell Shazam that that's a thing that she can do. Like he wouldn't make that sort of mistake if that is something that is within her capabilities. He'll just try something else like punching her hard enough to knock out Superman.
Okay, well, again, the wisdom of Solomon is not something that Billy Batson uses all that often, and definitely not something he uses in the way you're describing. Like, I read pretty much the entire run of The Power of Shazam in preparation for this match, and at no point does Billy Batson, like, tap into encyclopedic knowledge or ask the wizard what somebody's, like, biggest weaknesses. It's just not really something he does very often, and it's really inconsistent.
I think that you're underestimating how creative and clever Billy Batson is even without the powers of Shazam. This was more common in like the Golden Age, but like you still see it even in the post-crisis period that we're talking about. He ends up in a situation where for whatever reason he can't draw upon the power of Shazam and has to just like outsmart someone else who's usually like an adult supervillain, and he almost always does it. There's a moment in like The Power of Shazam #2 when like he and a bunch of adults are trapped in a mansion that's burning down, and Billy's the one who's able to like figure out that there's a dumbwaiter in the walls even though there's no door, and that's how they end up escaping. Like he's the smartest person in that room, and he's like 10 years old.
He had inside knowledge on that one. He knew the house.
With his intelligence, he got his powers by following a stranger into a dark train tunnel in the middle of the night.
I mean, that's
I'm just saying.
That's a Destiny thing. Carol got caught in the explosion of an alien washing machine.
Everyone knows
the
don't do
wisdom
that.
of children.
I want to touch on how, Dan, you said that he could approach a different tactic by punching her hard enough to knock out Superman. Well, punches are a great way for her to absorb his kinetic energy. The more he punches her, the more powerful she's going to get. This scenario is really perfect for her because really the only thing he can do is try to attack her with his magical energy. And with her seventh sense, she's been able to dodge weapons that go faster than the speed of light. So I don't think that'll be a problem. And she can always charge herself back up with the electricity running through the city.
I don't know, man. Like her energy absorption abilities are just like not that reliable. Like there's plenty of times when she gets hit either by energy or by kinetic force and she gets taken out. Like Nick Fury shoots her with a laser gun in Secret Invasion 4 and that takes her out. She gets punched by Thanos in Civil War 2 and gets taken out. So like, you're talking about how Shazam doesn't always have the wisdom of Solomon on. Carol, I guess, either doesn't always have her energy absorption on, or it can't absorb all types of energy, or it gets overwhelmed, or I don't know. It's not like the panacea that you seem to be putting it forward as, though.
I think it's panacea. That's my last rebuttal point.
Is that? Can we double check the pronunciation on that? I was going to say panacea, but
You might be
either.
right. I think it is panacea.
I'm pretty sure it's
All right.
panacea. But that's
normally
fine.
I trust you on these things, Dan, because you're such
the pronunciation that you just did. I think it's a Greek word, so ultimately, however we say it in English is going to be wrong anyway.
Absolutely.
Very well done, Team Captain Marvel. Team Shazam, say my name, say my name. If you need to lift like Hercules, or endure like Achilles, or like Zeus make it rain, you can flee like Mercury. Everyone else in slow-mo, you're as smart as Shlomo, cutting babes in twain.
Wow.
That was really special.
We're recording this before the new movie comes out, and if that song is not in the movie, I'm going to feel extremely ripped off.
Yeah, now it's ruined forever.
You guys mentioned Shazam losing his powers during the fight with the Spectre during Day of Vengeance. He didn't actually lose his usual powers in that fight. Like, there were a bunch of wizards that imbued him with the combined strength of every magic user on Earth, and that was what eventually ran out during that fight, not his, like, God's-given power.
Yeah, it did. He was completely drained of magic by the end of that. Like he
yes, the
and
magic
Spectre
that they
said so.
put in him.
No, all of his magic, he was drained of it. The magic they put in him was necessary for him to even survive 5 seconds against the Spectre.
The Spectre is the wrath of God, dude. Like,
I know,
in
I'm
that
just
story
saying.
before that point, he had taken out, like, the Phantom Stranger and Madame Xanadu and Dr. Fate.
What I'm saying is he got carried away from that fight. He was out of magic.
I haven't heard anything yet about her ability to deal with fights not going the way she expects because she is so powerful. And it really seems to hamstring her whenever it doesn't go quite how she's expecting it to go.
Bob, did you not hear my thing about always getting up?
She does always get
Yeah.
up, but boy, there are times whenever that is not the right call.
No, it's always the right call, Bob.
I mean, I saw the movie, but yeah.
Yeah, I saw the movie too. The movie was beautiful, and that was like the best sequence in it because it really purely represents the Captain Marvel ethos of it doesn't matter if things are going against her. She always gets up and always keeps fighting.
You guys were leaning pretty heavily on her cosmic awareness being able to get her out of trouble or allow her to avoid attacks, that sort of thing. I've read a lot of Captain Marvel comics. I can think of a handful of times where her cosmic awareness was actually, like, useful, and a lot more times when it triggers at really inconvenient times and it leaves her completely stunned and with a massive headache when it does, which is just gonna be enough for, like, Shazam to get in and take her out while she is distracted.
I wouldn't want you to think that we're leaning heavily on the cosmic awareness. It's a thing. I tried to make clear that I thought of it more as like a tiebreaker if she does get into a close fight.
I have a specific example of her overcoming an incredibly powerful headache and it not mattering. In The Enemy Within #1, she's looking for this old lady, Rose, that she cares for and hangs out with in the park. This is also during the time when she's suffering from her brain lesion, and if she flies, it makes it worse. So naturally, she's fighting, she does fly, she suffers from the massive headache, literally says to Spider-Woman, "Please do not lecture me while my brain is on fire." And then the second that Pound Cake mentions Rose, the old woman, she snaps back into it. The pain doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Shoots a photon blast at Pound Cake, picks her up off the ground to interrogate her, and goes off and finds Rose. And it doesn't matter. As long as she has the drive to win, she'll overcome anything that's going on inside her that will hold her back.
In that specific instance, it's very good that the enemy Captain Marvel was fighting was Pound Cakes and not Shazam. Like, I realize you guys are trying to talk us down. You have to admit, Shazam is a slightly tougher enemy than Pound Cakes.
No, definitely is a slightly tougher enemy than that. But Shazam
that doesn't
is all
change her reaction.
And Shazam is all like raw speed, raw power, little kid playing with toys, out of control, doesn't know what he's doing half the time. Carol might not be as like technically strong as he is at his best, but she has control. Her entire body moves as she wants it to, and she has pinpoint precision in her fighting movements, which she's actually trained in. Like, I get that Shazam's tough, but I don't think he's as tough as you guys are making him out to be.
So there is a part of the run whenever she's an alcoholic. And I know that is not what's happening right now. But is that aspect of her personality, the poor decision making and the like kind of aggro part of her, just resolved away in the comics, that she's never makes bad decisions like that again? Or she never does things that are risky and hurt other people around her or herself again?
Her bad decisions usually don't come in the form of like winning battles. Her bad decisions come in the form of like managing her personal life. And like
I think
moral
sometimes
quandaries.
it spills over, though. Otherwise, she would have been taken in by, like, a small group of Kree.
What? What are you talking about?
Yeah, just, you know, whenever she was going like, oh, I'm just going to go deal with this myself, because I could do it. And then a small, like a clutch of Kree were like, well, we're taking you in.
She's been part of tons of groups, Bob, but that doesn't mean she can't operate solo, unlike Shazam, who pretty much only operates in the context of a group.
This was her solo, but
the bullshit.
But fair enough if you want to.
What bullshit? He's got his family, and he's got the JLA, and that's, like, all he does.
Oh, man.
The only thing that I had seen Shazam in before this was Justice League Unlimited.
Well, that's a failing of you. He had a movie before Superman had a movie. You guys keep talking about Carol's ability to absorb energy, ramp up her powers, turn into her binary form, that sort of thing. I'll admit that at that point, she gets closer to being on Shazam's level, but like the kind of power it takes to get her to that level is way beyond anything that a city would produce. Like, there was this one point in that Secret Avengers comic I mentioned earlier where like someone had to open a portal directly to a white hole in order for her to absorb enough energy to go binary. Like, that kind of power is not lying around here, except in Shazam, which is magic, which will either hurt her or not be absorbable at all by her. So like, she has to ramp up to get to that point. There's not enough energy around for her to do it, and she will burn through that much more quickly than she's able to actually hurt Shazam with that level of power.
If she can absorb Shazam's magic lightning, which she can,
I still do not believe that's the case.
Which she absolutely can, then she uses that to go binary, and then like it doesn't matter what her wounds are or how bad it hurt because she's binary now. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Plus, like, Dan, I don't know if you read the Ultimates run in 2015, but like going binary in that run is like standard procedure. Like, she just has somebody shoot her with some energy for like a second and she's able to go binary pretty damn quick. I think between the sun, the city power, and absorbing the power for opponent, either kinetic or magic lightning is going to be enough to get her there.
That's wrong, but I'm willing to end this argument.
How's it wrong?
Because Blue Marvel's a living antimatter reactor.
He's
That's
not
what she
the
was
only
getting
one
shot
who
with.
does it.
Guys, you made me laugh so hard I just drooled on myself.
Personally, I think it's more impressive to be able to absorb antimatter or the matter of a black hole than it is to absorb, magic lightning.
Yeah, fucking seriously.
I thought you were going to say it was impressive to laugh so hard you drooled.
Enough of that.
I'm a little hurt now.
I said enough of that. The fight has gone on for nearly an hour now, and neither side is even remotely close to backing down. The architecture of the abandoned city, however, is not nearly faring quite as well. A sizable portion of the city's skyline has been reduced to rubble. Realizing that if this continues, it will be difficult for him to have additional trials by combat in this city, ICBB OBC Chairman Michael Duffy has only one option left. He raises a security cover over a button on his desk, and after a moment of hesitation, he presses it. This button was only meant to be used in cases of extreme emergency because pressing it unleashes the lightning round.
No! Oh, man.
This is great for us.
Carol absorbed it, it's fine.
Suddenly, Captain Marvel and Shazam collapse to their knees, their strength draining away. What's happening? Asked Shazam. Red Tape reappears, stepping out of a legal loophole in the sky. Because your powers have been deemed to be a threat to the multiverse in general, and the Interdimensional Consolidated Bureaucratic Bureau of Bureaucratic Consolidation in particular, the chairman has authorized a claim of eminent domain on both your set of superpowers and all superhero names that you have ever had, whether they be Captain Marvel, Shazam, Miss Marvel, Captain Thunder. All of that now belongs to the Bureau. For now, you can draw on none of these names in order to gain your superpowers. All you are is Carol and Billy. Carol Danvers and Billy Batson are both exhausted. They've been fighting for over an hour, and now all their superpowers have been taken away. They're sore all over, dead tired, and yet neither one of them wants to get up. So what if neither of them is Captain Marvel anymore? They're still Carol, they're still Billy, and maybe there's power in those names too. Carol Danvers stands up and says a single word. Carol! Billy Batson stands up and does the same, simply saying, Billy! And in a flash of light, both are transformed.
He should have said Carol.
He should have. Advocates, in the vein of Shazam, your character's real first name is now an acronym.
Oh my god, I'm so glad I didn't do this for my opening stinger because I considered it.
You can now call upon the power of that name to channel the powers and abilities of 5 fictional characters of your choice from different fictional universes, not from your own. Captain Marvel's 5 characters must have the initials C, A, R, O, and L. Shazam's 5 characters must have the initials B, I, then 2 characters whose names both start with L, and finally Y. Once both teams have decided what powers they have, I'm going to need you to argue how you're able to defeat your opponent with this new set of powers, and then how you will go on to defeat Red Tape himself and take back your superhero name and the powers that go along with it. To give you an idea of what I'm looking for, let's say Dan was doing this with his name. He could say Dan to get the abs of Dante, the shrinking abilities of Ant-Man, and the moral rectitude of Ned Flanders.
Stupid sexy Dan.
So, Team Billy, I'm sorry that your name has 2 L's in it, but if it's any consolation, Team Carol went first in the main round, so you're going first in the lightning round, meaning that you're still going before them, and they are going to be stuck with whoever the third best character is, whose name starts with L.
Excellent point.
Team Billy, do you need a minute to bat some ideas around, or are you ready to go?
All right. So B is for Bugs Bunny, comma, mischief making of. And this comes with all the sort of supernatural implications of it. So our new hero will be sort of convincing Carol that, like, she's in a completely different place and has a completely different role. Like, they're in a fight, but then convinces Carol that they're actually doing a play. And then Carol has to act out a death scene, and then, like, she actually loses the fight as a result. You know, Bugs Bunny stuff. I is for Indiana Jones, comma, the Casanova fallacy defying luck of.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can say Casanova fallacy, you make bad decisions, and just because things turn out doesn't mean that you're a competent character. This power, canonically, is not that. It is things just work out for you, regardless of what happens, because you have the universe's screenwriter on your side.
Then I will say that is not the right power to use when I am judging, but carry on.
No. It's right there. It's in the wiki for Billy, the Billy Batson superhero. Like, it says here, it's not the Casanova fallacy if it always works. So, you know, there you go.
These are facts.
Look, I didn't make this up. Speaking of, L is Link, comma, the inventory of. So we're pulling out master swords, hook shots, bombs, and, you know, Link's been in a bunch of games, and, like, he has a lot of repeats of items. That just means that Billy's going to be dual wielding master swords and, like, just hucking mirror shields at Carol one after the other, because, boy, he's got some mirror shields to burn. The stuff that took out Ganon 15 times over is coming at Carol.
And for the second L, the policy and binder making abilities of Leslie Knope. How will red tape will crumble in the face of that determination, that encyclopedic understanding of policy, that ability to see how one thing affects another and go, I know exactly which forms I need to have, and I have all of them here in this binder. And then I have references to that form in these other set of binders that I have made that I stayed up all night decorating so that way they would all match.
Yeah, take that, red tape.
Yeah! Oh, if there's one thing he has a weakness for, it's going to be matching binders. Finally, the force powers of Yoda. If you thought that the items in Link's bags of holdings, he has more than one now, right? Multiple bags of holdings.
Nested bags of holdings. They're like a Russian nesting doll.
If you thought those were a problem, now he doesn't have to use his hands. Also, mind control stuff if he wants to use it.
Very well done, Team Billy.
It's kind of you to say so.
Everyone is trembling now in fear of that terrible name. Team Carol, given that 2 L names have already been taken, you're going to need to be pretty damn versatile to pull this one off.
Are you trying to get your name changed to Zaltzman?
That was the result of about 20 minutes of working on Danvers fun.
Worth every minute.
Sarah can vouch for this. I totally thought of Leslie Knope, and I was going to do it, and I thought of something else, but it was a good idea. You took it anyway. Fortunately, when you're dealing with red tape, I have something that I think is a little bit better than Leslie Knope, just a little bit, which is the badass accounting skills of Cyril Figgis.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Then we're doing the shape-shifting powers of Amethyst.
Pandering, but continue.
Is it pandering if we all like it?
Yeah, we all love it, I think, except maybe Dan.
Guys,
Dan hates Steven
dislike
Universe.
it.
I know. I'm just joking.
Dan!
I, in fact, actively very much like it.
I know
You like it slightly less than we do, therefore.
Therefore, you are the enemy.
Carol can use these Amethyst shape-shifting powers in basically any way she can think of. First thing that I can think of is when I was looking up Shazam's weaknesses, the first thing I came across was that he gets sometimes nervous around forward women. So, I mean, Carol is a pretty forward woman herself, but there are more forward women than she, such as, let's do She-Hulk. So she can shapeshift into She-Hulk.
And what? We'll try to seduce a 10-year-old boy? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and then
a
he'll be
12-year-old, thank you.
Yes, he's 12. He'll be so flabbergasted that he'll just, pretty lady, I've never seen boobs this close before. Yeah. And then she'll just be able to take him out.
Yeah, everything that happens when Sylvana's daughter hits on him.
R is the demonic powers of Raven, specifically from Teen Titans Go, because that's when she actively uses her demonic powers the most. So we've got black tentacles sucking people into the vortex inside of her cape, full on like growth powers, really strong on intimidation. So she can use these against either Red Tape or Shazam, because I feel like Red Tape might be a little more inclined to go her way if she's 60 feet tall and spewing tentacles and terrifying him. And
So you're going to be seducing him at the same time? Is that?
No, we're seducing Shazam and we're terrifying Red Tape.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
What I'm hearing from the other team is just such classic Billy Batson, classic little kid, like, oh, I'm going to go with I'm going to make it all go, like making a bang action figures together. Look, Carol Danvers is an espionage agent. I don't know if you knew about that. So in addition to, say, the shape-shifting abilities of Amethyst, we're going with the Master of Disguise abilities of Count Olaf.
Oh, wow.
So, in other words, Master of Disguise plus shape-shifting equals no matter what's happening here, we're leaving.
Okay.
All right. And finally, the pièce de résistance.
The fourth wall breaking abilities of one Lizzie McGuire.
What?
For those of you not familiar, Lizzie McGuire gave us the gift of Hilary Duff. She's just a normal 13-year-old, 12-year-old girl, whatever, living her normal life. Except there's this weird little animated version of her that details out her inner monologue and talks to the camera, smashing through the fourth wall. And do you know what you can do when you can smash through the fourth wall? Is you can go all the way back to when DC sued Fawcett Comics because Captain Marvel is clearly just a rip-off of Superman, and then Fawcett Comics is like, oh darn, you're right, and shuts down their entire operation. Plus, Marvel has been able to keep up with using the name of Captain Marvel because they have to put out a title featuring the name Captain Marvel every 2 years, and they have done so successfully, therefore overriding anything that Red Tape could know himself, because we're just bringing in the real world, where Captain Marvel clearly wins by the way that she is Captain Marvel.
Yeah, this is called thinking outside the box, guys.
Man.
Try it sometime.
I wish we'd had a Z in our name so we could call upon the powers of Zach Morris and pause time.
All right. Very good job, everyone. That was lovely. Now comes the part of the show where I'm supposed to make a decision. But in all honesty, I don't really know what to believe because I've just learned that large sections of my own backstory have just been retconned. So I'm going to need a few minutes to look up on some wikis and try to figure out which of my personal biases and conflicts of interest are and are not still canon before I make my decision.
DC!
Yeah, this was a larger than normal headache to try to research.
I could not believe. You want to talk about Red Tape?
Yeah,
if you guys want me back on the show, I'm not doing a comics match.
You know what,
this
dude?
was absurd.
No one would blame you.
Why do you think Kit isn't here?
I just say that is the ballsiest thing I think we've ever had a first-time guest do.
Yeah.
To be fair, I realized that the list of characters that I told Claire I wanted to represent are mostly from comics. Whoops.
Oh, no.
Well, you've made your own bed then, dude. As far as I'm concerned.
It's not my fault all of my other suggestions are completely off the wall and unrealistic. In my heart, I'm voting for the Revolution from Purple Rain versus the Revolution from Les Mis.
Wow.
That's all I want.
That is a match suggestion.
How is it that this is the first time hearing about this?
Yeah,
Someone has
seriously.
dropped the
About
ball.
it. I tweeted at you guys.
Oh, well. Twitter's not the way to reach me personally, but, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you have to have a submarine for that.
Bob, I have to say, I was very grateful when you turned up to be my partner for this one, because in my mind, I was thinking that Shazam is the sort of character that, like, you would really enjoy, because he's just like a really nice kid who really loves being a superhero. How much of that did you get to experience during your research?
None, because I had to learn everything about Captain Marvel as much as I could. So I got to learn nothing about this sweet baby, because that is how this show works.
He's not that sweet, honestly. He fights against being a superhero at every turn.
He's
Oh,
really
man.
lame.
Oh, you guys
Sucks.
you guys are breaking my heart. Shazam is legit one of my favorite DC characters. Ugh.
That is unfortunate.
The power,
you can-
the power
You
of
can
is so
consider this
good.
my
Don't
revenge
yucca
for you guys
yum.
shitting all over Neverending Story on the last episode, like the monsters you are.
That's fair. That's fair.
Captain Marvel is actually the first single issue comic book that I bought. I was in Midtown Comics in New York, which is really not a good first time comic book shop. It's very overwhelming.
It's very overwhelming. Yeah, there's
And
a
I
lot of
was-
merch just
yeah.
all over the place.
I was looking
merch.
at like the new releases wall, and the only thing I saw that said #1 on it was the Enemy Within storyline. And I was like, oh, those are Avengers. Who's this cool looking chick in the middle, though? I want to know about her. And then when I opened it, I realized it wasn't actually a #1. And then I learned all about how #1s are just a trick to get you to read more comics
Yep.
when you don't know what you're doing. And then I switched over to indies.
Yep, that's fair. Marvel is especially bad about deceptively numbered #1s.
Yeah, for real. I was aware of Captain Marvel, like, in my comics history, like, especially because I was an X-Men fan. Like, I knew her as binary. I knew Carol as binary. But I got more into her recently, like, during this whole Captain Marvel shit, where she's the boss of space, as she puts it.
That's right.
And man, going back and reading some of the old stuff, that book was not great either.
Which one are you talking about in particular?
Just like old Captain Marvel when she's wearing the black and gold outfit, like it's really sexist. And then you combine that with like all the Avengers 200 bullshit, which we don't want to talk about, but I
No, thank God for Chris Claremont for like realizing what bullshit that was and calling it out in a subsequent comic.
Yeah, that is amazing. I'm so glad he did that. But like one of the reasons I brought the whole like evolution element into my argument is because Carol, the character, fascinates me. Because she was this like nothing character. Like she was super powerful, but she didn't get to do anything.
Yeah.
And then as Marvel grows and becomes a global like entertainment media powerhouse and gets absorbed into Disney and all that stuff, her name is Captain Marvel. And so they had to make her a bigger character.
Yep.
And now she's the most powerful character in the MCU.
Yeah, she is. And that movie fucking ruled.
Oh,
Yeah,
so good.
So good. What do you want out of the Shazam movie? Because I'm very curious. If he's one of your absolute favorite characters, what to you would be the ideal Shazam movie, Dan?
Here's the thing. We are recording this before the Shazam movie comes out. I believe this episode, however, is coming out after it releases. So
That's correct, yes.
I haven't seen the Shazam movie yet. All I've seen is the trailer. There are scenes from the trailer that are lifted directly from the Jeff Johns run on Shazam, which started, I think, around like 2012, 2013, something like that. And in that run, Billy Batson is a gigantic jerk, which really disappoints me. And like, it seems to me like they are leaning more towards being like sort of fun and goofy than certainly more than any other DC film has been. Which, you know, I'm certainly here for that above the grimdark nonsense of Batman versus Superman.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I feel like they're not going to get it 100% right, but I mean, it might be watchable. It might be enjoyable.
dude,
Wonder Woman was
the
good.
early reviews say it was great.
Yeah. So
And fucking Aquaman was good.
I didn't see Aquaman.
Dude, Aquaman's really good.
All right. All right.
It's like, it's stupid and like really over the top, but I really enjoyed it.
No,
Does he talk
after
to
Man of
sharks?
Steel, after Man of Steel, I was like, I will never see another DC movie until the reviews are at least 80%.
I mean, that makes sense.
I am here, by the way. So, hi, how's everybody
Claire.
doing?
That depends, Claire. You tell me how I'm doing.
Yeah. So here's what I got. As I alluded to, I just threw this in my introduction to Lightning Round because I assumed it was how it would go, and it was borne out by what you guys said, which is this is going to be a very long and drawn out fight. Neither of these people give up. Both of them have huge reserves of energy they can draw upon. So the question is, which one of them has a clearer path to victory that they can use to defeat their opponent? It is difficult to defeat Shazam under normal circumstances. It is also very difficult to defeat Carol under normal circumstances, it seems like. The only weakness that we know of that is mentioned a lot is that she is weak to magic. It was said before she could not absorb magic. Then it was said that she can absorb magic, but it just hurts her. And we can assume that as time is going on, she's getting better and better at absorbing magic, but we don't have a lot of data from recent years on that. All we know is that she can probably absorb it, but it probably hurts going down. That is a path to victory that I can see, which is that they fight, Shazam punches her, shoots her with lightning, she keeps getting up, she keeps getting up, she keeps taking it, but it hurts the fuck out of her every time, and it will wear her down. I don't see an equal path to victory from the other side that was ever presented. I really want to give her the win because I love Carol, but I haven't seen a clear enough path for how she can defeat his invulnerability, how she can beat him, and there is a path for Shazam that was laid out. So I'm sorry, I have to give it to Shazam.
God, guys, fantastic job. Your arguments were incredibly strong.
I felt the kinetic powers of each of the
man,
blows.
This whole thing was like me coming in extremely confident and then my confidence wearing away very quickly the more you guys spoke. You guys did an incredible job with that.
I blame Russia.
That's fair. That's fair.
Blame Russia, yeah.
I think what we can all agree is that comics are fucking stupid.
They sure
Yes.
are.
Yes.
The worst.
Absolutely.
More importantly, Carol might be defeated, but she will get back up.
She will.
Oh, yeah.
In like an hour, but the fight's gonna be over.
I mean, it might be a while.
And then she's gonna go to Billy's house and like break his windows and shit like that. And he's gonna be like, "It's done."
Yeah, and they're gonna play some really rocking 90s girl band music.
Yes!
And it's gonna be great.
Well, Sarah, you are a first-time advocate, first-time guest, and she are talented. I was trying to fit another Marvel alien pun in, but
She are very talented, I think.
yeah, she are very talented. All
I
right.
appreciate the effort into the pun.
Yeah.
I know how
man.
much they hurt you.
It was a lot of effort. I'm very sorry to say.
That pun's so bad it might just break my skull. That's I don't know. It's like,
Yeah, I'm really going to have to go brood on this one.
Oh.
I hate all of you.
Yeah, you know what? That's the right call.
Just want you all to know, in the time it took you guys to record, I ate an entire jar of pickles.
Ooh, what kind?
Well, thank you for coming into this very small recording space with me. I appreciate that.
Bear with me because I was stricken with the terrible combination of desire and hubris.
Did you get partway through it and then go, no, I can do this?
yeah, like Carol Danvers, you kept getting back up and eating more pickles
Oh, yeah. Oh,
when
yeah.
your body was telling you to quit.
Are we talking like baby dills, full dills, slices,
I'm talking like
bread and
the
butters?
the honkin' big Clausen, the really fucking
shit.
salty
Kit.
one.
Yes.
Kit.
Mistakes were made. Anyway,
Yeah.
time for the salty thanks, but not so salty because we love these fans.
The
First of all,
marvelous things.
the pickled kit thanks. I am fully brined and ready to go. First of all, thank you to Andrew Young, who made us a bunch of logos for Extraordinary League. I put that up in the fan art section of our website if you guys want to give it a look-see.
They're so cool.
Or the fan faction, right?
Yes, or the fan faction. Then over to Twitter. Thank you to Earth Mofo, A-Scribed, Cringe Rap, 3 Owls in a Trench Coat. What's up?
That's me.
The 3 owls right here in our studio.
Yeah.
Rip that trench coat off. Boom. Look at that. Three little hoops exposed. Okay, oh gosh. New one. Here we go. The Lake Bakes Fake Jake.
Oh my.
Cool Down Now, Vander Turner, Robert Ramsey, Sean Boyd, Icon Jade, Jeff Rick Present, Cosplay Devotee, Sid Rabbit, Shadow of Merwick, and Biz Snarky, who tweets about our episodes basically as she listens to them on Stitcher. She's been doing this for some time.
Oh, I need to check that out.
Oh.
I just wanted to give
Live tweets.
Tweets on Twitter, or can you tweet on Stitcher somehow? I don't know what a Stitcher
Well,
is.
then it's a tweet.
Then it's a tweet.
Well, it looks like as she listens to them on Stitcher, like a tweet
just
goes out
automatically.
about it. Yeah.
Okay. I need to scope that out.
Over to Tumbles, thank you to Secretly a Skeleton, Sid Rabbit Blog, Not Very Bright Raven, and Ink the Cryptid. And on Facebook, thank you to Matias Tatimes, Adam Mayo, Jeffrey Ketchum, Robert Ramsey, Kosuke Takahashi, and Jeff Polier.
Thanks also to Michael Duffy, who was who pushes the buttons over at that one bureau that Claire made up.
I was going to see if you could remember the name.
Nope, definitely not. He pushes
and also
them buttons.
over at the Yumi and Duffy podcast.
Yes,
Also
he has his own podcast. That is not a side effect of him being a patron of ours, but him getting on this show is, as well as all the other bonus content that we offer over at Patreon. So thanks to him, thanks to all our patrons, and thanks also to Anton Belain, the person who originally recommended that we do a match of this sort. He also wanted Monica Rambeau involved, but sadly, we already had one Marvel character in, so one day maybe we will find a match for her. I would really like to, but that is not this day. This day we had a tiny boy in the body of a man.
One thing to say, news from the fan faction, is that after the votes have been tallied, and we're going to be watching Barbarella this month.
Yeah.
The month of April. And so we talked about it, and we're going to watch it on April 20th, 420, because what could be more appropriate? We will be letting you know when it will be showing, but definitely put 420 on your calendars.
Yeah.
Not just
As if it wasn't there already.
Yeah, not just put a boob over the marijuana leaf.
Celebrate 420 the Barbarella way, which is get a man to swim in an enormous hookah and then smoke the fumes that come off of his sweat.
Ooh.
I thought you were going to say get ridiculously high and then make a movie.
Also that is also the Barbarella way.
Oh, man.
Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, surprise! It's time for more Surprise Party.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman and production assistant Sharon Schneiderman, with logo design by Claire Mulkerin.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Hitman.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going. And we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
Hey, Claire, do you want to take a minute to specify timelines and stuff?
Oh yeah. So what do we decide on all that?
So we're using the most recent version of Captain Marvel, correct?
Yeah, I mean, basically her whole timeline.
Yeah.
But yes, as she appears in
You
current
actually
Marvel
probably don't
comics.
need to say that at all, but you can just say we are using the version of Shazam that appears in the time. The version of between
say, like,
Crisis on Infinite Earths and Infinite Crisis.
We are using the character currently known as Shazam when he was known as Captain.